Mrs. Hardy.
Yeah, a lot of what I want to say is mostly just to get it on the record to help out anybody who's part of this fight. I've been thinking a lot about the logic of this, the numbers, and so that's kind of what I'm going to speak to. The LA Times wrote an article about this about a week ago. It's too hard to get to the date right now. And it was interesting because within the article they compared Coachella to Huntington Beach. And I don't know a whole lot about Coachella. In fact, if you try and Google the city of Coachella, it's not quite easy to get details because Coachella Valley comes up, and I didn't know if actually Coachella was a city in itself, but it is. And so one of the questions I had, because in the article it said that they had been assigned 15,000 units and it had been lowered to 7,800, which is a lot, but my image of Coachella is that there's a lot of open space. And then they compared it to Huntington Beach, who'd gone from 3,600 to 13,000. So, what's that comparison? What, do these cities even compare? Why would they put that in the Times? So first I looked at the square miles of each city. And interestingly, Coachella has 28.2 square miles and Huntington Beach is just over 30 square miles. And if you consider places that cannot be built on, like our wetlands or the harbor, there's just a physical impossibility, although there's pictures of Santa Monica that might provide alternatives. So we're about the same size. So then my next question was, okay, what's the population of both of these cities? And we know our population somewhere around 200,000. Coachella, anybody want to guess? 40,000, 1/5 the size of the population. So it was an interesting comparison because geographically we're the same. I don't know if they have a big, like canyon running through the city or something that I'm not aware of. I don't know their geography either, but just simple, where can homes go? It was my first thing. The addition of these units for Los Angeles and Orange County combined, according to the article, was 124,000 additional units for LA and Orange County. Huntington Beach's units increased by just under 10,000. So we have nearly 10% of the increase for all of the cities that are in LA and Orange County. That seems excessive. One thing about being a coastal city is that I think there's just a lot of misconception about what a coastal city looks like and the kinds of issues we have to deal with. I don't think Riverside understands what it's like to deal with the Coastal Commission. The Coastal Commission's priorities are so in contrast to HCD's. The Coastal Commission's is using words like sea level rise and managed retreat, right? And they're saying, get away from the coast, don't build on it, which is in direct contrast. The Coastal Commission is encouraging low-budget accommodations and encouraging short-term rentals, which takes away from the housing stock, and asking us to build hotels. You look at the Magnolia Tank Farm site, and while I'm not advocating more homes there, the hotel certainly takes away from the possibility of it. Although it doesn't really matter because we probably won't get to use the tank farm site as part of our RENA numbers anyway. We'd only be able to count the actual 10% of the affordable housing, which is only 25 units out of 250. Other places that, logically, where could we build? Where would we even put 13,000 units? Well, I guess Boeing's leaving for the most part, so how about there? Well, then there goes our job center, and so then it doesn't make sense to build housing there. Plus, based on the rules I've understood on counting RENA, we can't say we're going to build there because HCD won't believe us. They didn't believe us when the Levitt site was going to become housing, and now it is. And we didn't get to count most of those numbers because they wouldn't believe us that we could ever convert a furniture store to housing. And so we don't even get to count a lot of the things that we have. The idea that, people are just going to have to get over their single-family neighborhoods and accept high density, how is that going to work? Would HCD even believe us if we took a housing tract and said, you know what, if someone wanted to buy those up and build high-density housing in that tract, we'd be okay with it? I don't think they'd believe us on that either. So a lot of the places, like even if we were super creative, we couldn't create 13,000 that HCD would believe us. And as far as job centers and transportation, we don't have a whole lot of that in Huntington Beach. And so again, a misperception of Huntington Beach. I find it interesting interesting that those are the priorities, and I look at Santa Ana's numbers. Under the original, they only had 3,000 units, and I looked at that and I thought, why does Santa Ana only have 3,000 required units when we have 3,600? That seemed unfair. And then I looked at the update. They still only have 3,000. They had a 0% increase. Well, they have more than one transportation center. They have major job centers. They are the county seat. They have multiple shopping malls. In fact, one of them is rumored to be planned to be converted into housing, which would more than cover their 3,000 units probably. And so I want to see a method that, or a methodology that uses logic and numbers and experts, not behind the scenes backroom deals that, you know, say stick it to the people who can't play with us or stick it to the people who aren't at this meeting. That's not what this should be about. It should be realistic. These numbers are way too high to be realistic in most communities anyway. Didn't bring up things like earthquake faults, water use, electricity use. We just had our power plant, the old one, allowed to function for 2 extra years before it gets torn down because we need the electricity. Right? So, and by the way, desalination plants are easier and cheaper in brackish water inland than they are cleaning up salt water from the coast. So we should be looking at creating transportation and job centers and water use inland. And I'm not saying stick it to the inland. I'm just saying we've got to be logical here. And I want to say thank you to Mayor Pro Tem Semeta for your final word. Your report was awesome, but also your final words is, you know, stay engaged, and you're so polite, but you know, and encouraging. But I'm telling the people who aren't here anymore, who have the signs, we need you. Please, you have loud voices that have made a difference. Thank you so much for doing that. Can we ask you to step up and do that and be loud and write letters and show up to these meetings? We so need you on this issue. And please, again, the fight is for logic and common sense and actual math. You know, so please speak from the heart, but if you need numbers, we'll give them to you. We'll help you out, because that's the thing that makes a lot of difference is when there's when we're not, again, we got to get away from it should be here, it should be there, and you know, this is who I get along with and this isn't who I get along with, and they're the bad guy and we're the good guy. None of that. We need numbers and facts and logic. So hopefully that helps make an argument somewhere down the road. But this is just, I can't stand bad math. I just can't.
Mr. Brendan.
Yeah, I'll just chime in